I recently found an independently published children's book that has currently reached number 47 in Amazon's entire bookstore. Not number 47 in a small category, number 47 across every book on Amazon. The book is called 100,000 Whys for Kids. The author name is Elliot Wonder. It's a full color children's encyclopedia. The paperback costs $19.97. There's a hardcover for $37.99. There's even a spiral bound version for $49.99. At first, I thought this was just a nice example of an independent book doing well. But when I started digging, I found something a lot more interesting. There are now dozens of books with almost the same title. Many of the book covers look nearly identical. So, what happened here? Did one publisher find a winning niche? Did everyone copy the same bestseller? Or is there something else going on? Let's take a closer look. Hello, home bosses, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to show you the strange story behind a children's book that reached Amazon's overall top 50 and what it can teach the rest of us. Before we start, I want to be upfront about something. I found some interesting clues, but I can't prove exactly who made these books or what tools they used. Some of what I'm about to say is fact, and some of it is my best guess. I'll keep those two things separate as we go. So, the book that started my research, it's called 100,000 Whys for Kids, and it answers the big questions that children ask: science, space, animals, nature, history, inventions, how the world works. It's aimed at children roughly 6 to 13. It has 120 pages, a large page size, and the whole thing is printed in color. That last part explains the price. 1997 feels steep for a paperback until you remember that color printing costs far more than black and white. This isn't really competing with a normal paperback. It's closer to a traditional children's encyclopedia. So, what do the reviews say? The reviews are strongly positive. Parents say it's wonderful for curious children. They like the fun facts. They say the information is easy to follow and that it keeps kids entertained for hours. One review stood out to me. A customer said it's a good way for families to learn together. That's worth pausing on. This isn't just a book a child reads alone in their room. It's something a parent or grandparent sits down and shares with them. So that makes it more useful and it makes it a much easier gift to buy. So, why is this book selling so well? Well, a few things stand out. The idea is instantly clear. Children ask why constantly. I remember my children driving me crazy with their questions. Why is this like this? Why is the sky blue? Why do we dream? So, a book that answers their questions has an obvious purpose, and parents get that in 2 seconds. The subject range is wide: science, space, animals, history, nature, the body. A child doesn't need to love just one thing to enjoy this book. It looks valuable on the shelf. It's large, colorful, and full of illustrations. It reads as a good gift, not a cheap paperback. And the title does real work. Words like science, space, animals, and history help Amazon understand what the book is about and help a parent understand it at a glance. So, what about the hardcover and spiral editions? The hardcover is $37.99, which makes sense for a large color book that's also being bought as a gift. But then I found a spiral bound version for $49.99. That's quite hefty. My first thought was that the author had used a print on demand company like Lulu. But the listing tells a different story. The spiral edition is published by a company called Bitic Press or Bitic Press with its own product listing and its own publication record. It looks like Bitic takes existing successful books and turns them into premium spiral bound editions without the original author necessarily being involved. If that's right, it's a good sign of how much demand this book created. Another business looked at it and decided people would pay almost $50 for a lay flat version. And then I found all the other books. This is where it got strange. Once I started researching, I found dozens more books with the same basic idea. Different authors, slightly different subtitles, versions for different ages, but so many of the covers looked like they came from the same author. A dark blue or purple background, big yellow numbers, the words wise in large letters, astronauts, dinosaurs, planets, rockets, smiling children, that same bright, glossy AI illustration style. And lined up together, it's genuinely hard to tell them apart. I know a lot of people copy successful books and suddenly lots of other books appear, but they tend to be slightly different. This one had very, very similar copies of this same book. So I asked myself, could they have been created by the same author? But similar covers don't prove they all came from the same source. There are a couple of explanations worth considering. So, here are some possible reasons why so many look the same. The most likely explanation is simple. One book started selling well, other publishers spotted it through the sales rank or a book research tool, and they built something similar. Same style of cover, same keywords, same price point. This happens constantly on Amazon and it can happen within days of a book taking off. The second explanation is that several publishers used the same source. Maybe someone was selling a template pack, a course, or a set of ready made covers, or AI prompts, or an app that creates these type of books. So, if a lot of people used that source without changing much, you'd get exactly this result: rows of books that look almost identical. I looked into whether a specific tool or course was behind this. I found general AI prompt packs for creating fact books that existed before this trend, and I found more specialized children's fact book tools that appeared afterwards once the trend was already visible on Amazon. That timing suggests that the later tools were built because sellers noticed the opportunity, not that they started it. But I want to be careful here. I don't have proof tying any single named product to this specific book. So I'm not going to point at one and say that's what caused it or that's what started this book. What I can say is that the tools to do this exist and more are being built for this niche all the time. So, why did Elliot Wonder's book win? Why was that book selling so much? So, this is the question that actually matters. There are dozens of similar books. They all sell, but only one reached the overall top 50. So, why this one? We can't know every reason. Advertising and outside promotion could easily be part of it. But a few things are visible just from the listing. It's printed in full color, it's a large premium format, the subject range is broad, and the age range is clear. And the reviews back up the promise on the cover. Customers say the information is genuinely engaging and easy to follow. That last point is the one I'd pay closest attention to. Plenty of publishers can copy a cover. Copying the outside of a book doesn't mean you've copied the experience the customer actually gets. The winning book seems to have understood its buyer, not just its competitors. So, this is really important. Understand the buyer, not the competition so much. So, This is the saturation lesson. When people see a wall of similar books, the instinct is to say the niche is saturated and they walk away. But how many competing books exist doesn't tell you whether customers are still buying or what they still want that isn't being delivered well. The better questions are these: are people still buying in this space? What do the best selling books get right? What do the reviews complain about? Is there a gap you could fill better than what's already there? So the lesson isn't to go and publish your own version of 100,000 whys. By the time a trend is easy to spot, copying it directly is usually the weakest move that you can make. The useful lesson is underneath that. Learn to read why a book is winning, not just that it's winning. So, what to study in any successful book? Well, whenever you find a book doing well, there are 5 things worth looking at. First of all, what problem does it solve? This one answers the questions children actually ask. And I would have loved to have bought that book when my children were little, because they honestly drove me crazy. If you're watching, you know who I'm talking about specifically. But it was actually quite a lot of fun, and I would have loved to have had that kind of book to give them the answers. What I actually used to do is I used to turn it round and ask them. I said, "Why do you think it is?" So that's a good way to do it. But I mean, the book is brilliant. That is a really, I can see why it's selling so much. So the next question you've got to ask yourself is also, who is really buying it? Here, it's parents and grandparents buying a shared activity, not just a book. It's something that they can read together, and it's lovely to be able to do that. So, that's another question you can ask yourself when you see a book that does so well. Who is really buying it is a good question to ask. Another question to ask is, why does the cover work? In this case, with this book, it communicates science, discovery, animals, and space in under a second. You can see straight away what this book is about. And another question is, what makes the physical product feel valuable? So in this case, it's the size, the color printing, the gift like presentation. And another good question is, what do customers praise in the reviews? Go through the reviews. And in this case, they were saying that it's the clear answers, fun facts, and something that the whole family can do together. So, the exact title and niche matter far less than understanding those 5 things. That's a skill you can take into any book that you publish next, not just this one. So, these are my final thoughts. We still don't know exactly where all of these books came from. They may have copied each other, they may share a common source, some may even come from the same publishing business under different pen names. We don't know. Right now, there isn't enough evidence to say which one it is. I did really look into it and research it, but I couldn't really find out who's behind all of these books. Personally, I think that it's a book that was doing well, and then a lot of people used the same tool or used the same templates or prompts to create the other books. They're all selling. It's just that this particular one got to number 47 in the charts. I think yesterday it was actually at number 44. So it keeps changing a little bit, but to be under the top 50 books on Amazon, isn't that amazing? I wish we could create a book like that. And if you have ever created a book like that, let me know in the comments. I had one that went up to 200 something. So that was really good. But 50, wow. I take my hat off to whoever published this book. Even though I couldn't find out exactly where they all come from, what we do know is this: an independently published children's encyclopedia reached Amazon's overall top 50. A wave of very similar books appeared around it shortly afterwards, and a separate company built a premium edition on top of its success. They made the spiral bound version. So that's a remarkable result for an independent publisher. And it also shows something worth remembering. Self publishing success isn't always about finding an idea that nobody has ever tried. Sometimes it's about taking a familiar idea and building something that feels genuinely useful, clear, and worth the price. So, if you want help figuring out how to spot these patterns in your own niche or working out what your version of the 5 things looks like, that's exactly the kind of thing we work through together inside the Homeboss Publishing Academy. Come and find us at school.com/the Homeboss. I will leave the link below the video as well. So, I'd love to know what you think. Do you reckon these books came from the same source, or that publishers just saw a winner and copied it? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what you think about it. And to be clear, the lesson here isn't to go and copy this book, it's to study what customers actually value and use that to build something that's completely your own. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.